Record. And welcome, thank you for coming to watch my webinar. And it's tapping to improve your willpower around food, which is I'm very excited to present. So I'll tell you a little bit about me if you don't already know. I'm Claire Kerslake. I'm a health coach, a registered nurse and diabetes educator, trained in EFT, and I live in Darwin, which is in the middle of the wet season at the moment. And that beautiful photo on the left isn't actually a Darwin beach, it's a beautiful Gold Coast beach that my hubby took the photo of. And our beaches up here are beautiful, but you certainly, well, I wouldn't get too close to the water because of the saltwater crocodiles, which are prevalent up here. And just a fun fact, we weren't cat people, but we were adopted by our little cat Flossie, who I'm hoping won't make an appearance this time. Last webinar, I thought she might be quiet. It was like working with children. One should never work with children or animals. So hopefully she won't make an appearance tonight. But what about you? So this webinar is for you if you know that you can be an emotional eater, or you might wish that you had more willpower. And certainly I've said that on lots of occasions. And you're willing to try using tapping to increase your willpower. And yes, we were adopted, Suzanne. Yeah, well and truly, she chose us, and she's like a miracle worker, really. We weren't cat people at all. Not that we didn't like them, but we just had no intention of ever getting a cat. But she's got us wrapped around her little paws, which is beautiful. Okay. So about today, we're going to talk a little bit about what is willpower, a bit about the truths and myths of willpower and how to improve your willpower with tapping, but also we're going to move beyond willpower as well. And yeah, I encourage you to pop any questions in the chat because I'd like this to be quite interactive. So what is willpower? And lots of different definitions are out there. But one definition I really like is the strength to choose your right action in the moment. So it might be to eat more greens, so eat more of what's good for us, adding those extra serves of veggies in, or eat less sugar and fat. So those comfort foods often are high in sugar, fat and salt, aren't they? Of course, we often use willpower in conjunction with exercise as well, but tonight's webinar is more around our comfort eating and emotional eating. So some people believe that willpower is a personality trait. Now I know I've said on occasion and heard other people say, well, I must have been behind the door when willpower was given out. So some people have willpower, other people don't have willpower. However, it's something we all have, but it's a limited resource and some of us need more than others. So you can think of willpower a little bit like a fuel tank. So it needs to be topped up, but it gets depleted through the day. Same as the fuel in our car. When we drive our car, the fuel tank gets depleted. Same with our willpower. And that's a little bit why we seem to have lots of willpower in the morning, but through the day we make lots and lots of different decisions. And then come 3 or 4 o'clock, our willpower is really depleted. And the decisions might not even be related to food, although it's really interesting around food-related decisions. Has anyone got any idea how many food-related decisions we make in a day? You think it might be 10 or 20 or 50? Just pop in the chat what you think it might be. 100? Well, it's closer than 50. Any more advance on 100? It's actually 200. It's unbelievable, isn't it? 200 decisions we make through the day that are food related. It's absolutely extraordinary. And of course, all of those decisions deplete our willpower. And then if we're making decisions in our business, you know, it all erodes and depletes our willpower. So as I said, there are some expected and unexpected drains on our willpower. So walking past the chocolate 20 times a day. So this webinar is about tapping, but also it marries beautifully with strategy. So yeah, decision fatigue. That's exactly right, Suzanne. So that the advice to sort of clear your house out of that beautiful comfort food is a really good strategy, because just knowing that chocolate is on the bench or in the fridge, you know, you're having to use that willpower and make a decision. No, I'm not going to have it. I'm not going to have it. And then, of course, your willpower is depleted enough to the point where you do have some chocolate. But we also know being tired and sleep deprived can deplete our willpower, and we've all been there. Stress also is a big willpower depleter. And what I love about tapping is that it's so beautiful for reducing our stress. And they've done some really interesting research around cortisol level, which we know is released in our body when we're stressed, and they can measure these, of course, and it's reduced with tapping, which is fantastic. And as I said, any decision making, even if it's totally unrelated to food or our comfort eating. So how about you? What have you noticed depletes your willpower? For me, it was certainly the being sleep deprived, I noticed. And towards the end of the day for me is a big, I notice that my willpower is very much reduced. If I have to do the supermarket shopping, and often that's, you know, in the afternoon after work, and you're making lots and lots of decisions when you go through the supermarket. So have you ever noticed that often supermarkets will pop their lollies and confectionery in the aisle, and they know that they will sell more of that in the aisle, because we've made so many decisions going through the supermarket that our willpower is depleted. And oh yes, I can just imagine tantrums and yours, yeah, going through the supermarket. And they know the other way too. If they pop healthy things like fruit or even things like condoms, dental floss in that aisle, they'll sell more of those. So yeah, we need some more healthy things at the aisle. So this is why, even if you haven't been tempted by, I call them sometimes foods or a comfort food regularly, when you've had a tough day, you jump into the fridge and we sort of hope that we haven't got that comfort food there. So we can think of willpower as having two sides. We need to reduce a drain on our willpower. We also need to top it up regularly through the day if we can. But the good news is that we can top up your willpower tank with tapping, which is fantastic. Okay, so what I might do now is stop sharing my screen, and we might do a short tapping session. And there's a couple of, let me stop that just for a minute. And I'll put myself, let's see, you're in here. Speaker view. Oh, don't you love technology? Now, let's have a look. Need to pop myself into full screen. And can you see me? Here we go. Is that better? Yes, so that's good. So I'll pop the chat up as well. I'm good. Yeah, it's different with the different views, I think. Okay, so what we can do is we'll do a tapping session now, and I'll just run through how I usually tap. And so when we do tapping, we have what's called a setup statement. So at the start of a tapping session, and all the setup statements have the same sort of format. So it's even though I, and then you pop your problem in, which in this case we might use a food craving as an example. And then we have the end bit of that statement. So it goes something like, I deeply and completely love and accept myself, or I deeply and completely accept myself, or you can even say, if you're not comfortable with that, you know, everything is okay right now. So for instance, if I was tapping on a chocolate craving, and of course we often crave lots of different things, you know, people crave bread or nuts or whatever. Chocolate is one of the most common cravings. I used to crave potato chips, the type that you get in the packet, and Coca-Cola as well as chocolate. So I had them all covered: the sweet, the savoury, and the salty. So I would tap on my chocolate craving. So even though I really want this chocolate, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And when we do that setup statement, we say it 3 times. And then we tap just on the side of our hand, just near our little finger there, like that. So just explain what we do and the points, and then we'll run through a few rounds of a tapping thing. So I invite you to think about what you usually crave, and then when you're home, you'll be able to do that yourself. So I'll just go through the tapping points. There are 8 tapping points the way I do it. And we'd go the eyebrow point, the side of the eye, which is that little dip there, under the eye, just in that bone there, under the nose, the chin, which is sort of that dip in the chin, and the collarbone point. So imagine that notch in the collarbone, just go down and in about an inch. So just tapping there. And then under the arm, so you can think about under the arm as just where the bra strap goes in a woman, and then the top of the head, just on the top there. Now, what I recommend when we're tapping is that we give the issue a rating out of 10. Where naught is really, it's no issue at all. 10 is really the most intense you can imagine. And often it's not uncommon for a craving to be 10. You know, sometimes you feel you absolutely die if you don't have that food. And there's been lots of times when in the past when I've actually done the right thing and got the food out of the house, I've jumped in the car and gone to get some. So the craving is that intense. So tapping is absolutely, like I often think of tapping as the magic wand that I always wish I had. It's just so effective with cravings. So the other thing that yes, done it more times than I can think about. Yes, certainly. And that craving just is, you can't imagine being able to resist it. Just so strong and so powerful. Another thing I suggest is that with the food that you're craving or tend to be emotional eating, is that you just jot a few little points around about what it is about the food. So for instance, as an example with the chocolate, you know, the smooth and creamy taste. You might jot, I'm going to die if I don't have this chocolate. And perhaps you've rated the chocolate 10 out of 10. It feels 10 out of 10 for me. I can taste how good it feels. If for instance, with the Coke craving, you know, how cold it is. The bubbles are going to just be so lovely in my mouth. That shh of the can, the sound as I'm opening the can. So let's imagine that it's a chocolate craving, but for you, if you're tapping along at home, just imagine and replace when I say chocolate. If chocolate isn't your go-to thing, just replace it when I say that word. So we're going to just do a few rounds so that you can see how it goes. So the first thing we're going to do is the setup statement. Now I'm going to rate my chocolate craving 10 out of 10. And then after every round, you'll see I'll check in and see how things are going. So we're going to do that setup statement. So just tapping on the side of the hand, just lightly there. So even though I have this chocolate craving, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though this chocolate is going to taste so smooth and creamy, and I want it so much, it feels 10 out of 10. I'm going to die if I don't have it. I deeply, completely love and accept myself. Even though I really want this chocolate, it's going to taste so smooth and creamy. I deeply, completely love and accept myself. Then we're going to start on the points. So, and we do shorten the statements when we go through the points. This chocolate craving. So smooth and creamy. Under the eye, I really want this chocolate. Under the nose, 10 out of 10. This chocolate craving. I really want this chocolate. The collarbone. Under the arm, this chocolate craving. Top of the head, I'm going to die if I don't have this chocolate. And then what I recommend you do is just check in and see how that craving feels in your body. Now, it might be the same. Sometimes, rarely, it might go up, and that just means you haven't tuned in enough initially to get that rating. So that's okay. We'll just tap on. Often it will go down, and sometimes it can reduce really, really quickly, which I find so extraordinary, because if you struggle with cravings and emotional eating, you know what a struggle is and how hard it is. And tapping is just so effective and so quick with that. So it's just checking, and also just saying, did anything else come up which might be a related issue? And so let's say that my chocolate craving has reduced to 8. And so we'll tap again. So ideally we would tap until when we check in, the intensity feels less than 2. And so let's do another round. This chocolate craving. So I really want this chocolate. Under the eye, still 8 out of 10. It'll be so smooth and creamy. Chin, this chocolate craving. Collarbone, this chocolate craving. Under the arm, I really want this chocolate. Top of the head, I can't wait to have this chocolate. And then we'll check in again. And sometimes different things will come up when we tap. So it might be a memory from the past, or something that's related to that. And you might want to add that in. And so let's say it's dropped again to about 6 out of 10. We'll just keep tapping. We'll do one more round. And then you can see how, you will just keep tapping, and often it's quite quick that it will reduce, which is fantastic. So let's do another round. So this chocolate craving. So I really want this chocolate. Under the eye, it's going to taste so good. Under the nose, I can feel it in my mouth. I can taste it. Chin, so smooth and creamy. Collarbone, this chocolate craving. Under the arm, still 8 out of 10. Top of the head, I really want this chocolate. And then we would check in again, so you can see how that would work with tapping. It's just so beautiful and so effective. Now, any questions that you might have come up during that, feel free to pop them in the chat. I'll keep an eye on the chat so that I can answer them as we go along. So I'm going to share my screen again. Now that you've seen a tapping session, here we go. No, that's not it. Here we go. Share, and I'll just minimize down. There we go. Why do we shorten the statements after the setup? Yeah, that's a really good question. You don't have to, but it makes it a little bit quicker, and there's no real need to go through the whole full statement. We don't need to sort of say, I deeply, completely love and accept myself as we're going through. So sometimes just depending on what the statement is, often with a craving or an issue that's very intense, we'll be focused on that anyway. You know, just, and that's enough for the tapping to work. Yeah, I hope that's answered that question. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. So can you see how powerful this can be for emotional eating? And the proof is in the pudding, really. You know, in the midst of a craving, it's absolutely incredible. But I also want to say the last thing often we want to do is we dive for the wine or the chocolate or the Coke or the chips or the nuts is to tap. So you know, that's very interesting. And tapping around emotional eating and cravings got a few different things, a few different uses really. So the model of using tapping for firefighting, which is in the midst of a craving, is super effective, but often it's not getting to the heart of the matter. So tapping is really powerful when you have the trigger food in front of you, if the food is your trigger. And so you might have been tapping along then, perhaps you didn't have a craving, and perhaps you didn't have your food in front of you, and you thought, oh, well, you know, that's good, but perhaps not super effective. In the midst of a craving with the food in front of you, it's absolutely perfect. But also, tapping is super effective preventing. So before the moment, and you know, in terms of stress prevention, I mentioned that it lowers cortisol levels beautifully, but also just tapping along as you did with me then really helps to even reduce that cravings and emotional eating. And just a quick word about that, the research I just find so fascinating, and tapping is something that we've known about it for a while, and now there's a building body of research around tapping, which is great. You know, I always thought, well, it probably works. Well, we sort of knew it worked, but being a health professional, I thought, oh, it seems a bit out there. But now we've got this body of research that, and they're real evidence-based trials, which are fantastic. So what happens, the participants go in these trials, and then, of course, being evidence-based, they follow them up 6 and 12 months later. And if you've struggled with emotional eating and cravings, you know it takes such a lot of energy. It's such a huge part of your life. You know, I used to carry it around like a guilty secret, that as a health professional, I could know what I needed to do, but I wasn't doing it. In fact, not only was I not doing it, I was, you know, inhaling these family blocks of chocolate and lots of Coke and huge packets of chips as well. But what they found with tapping is that they would ring the participants of these studies a year later and say, oh, well, you know, how are you going? And they say, oh, yes, we were in that study, that's right. And they say, oh, well, you know, it was the Kit Kats. And, oh, was it? Yeah, that's right. I had a bit of a problem with Kit Kats, didn't I? And so they'd actually forgotten, the tapping has been so effective that they had even forgotten what the food was that it craved, which if you're struggling with emotional eating and cravings, it's hard to imagine, but it's just so super effective. So we've got our prevention, we've got in the moment, of course, that we've talked about, and also afterwards, perhaps after we have succumbed, where we might think, okay, why did that happen, and can we do some tapping on that? Particularly if the trigger isn't the food itself, it might be emotions. So what we need to do is to build our personal fortress, which contains all of these things. So tapping in the moment, which we've gone and had that demonstration. It's about recognising the triggers and patterns. So it might be something like, when I talk about trigger, it's like a cue. A great example of the cue is perhaps arriving home from work or at the end of your work day, if you work for yourself. And I used to feel like I needed to be rewarded. Like, you know, I deserve this. So it's a real passion. And our our subconscious sets up these beautiful habits, which can be bad habits as well as good habits. Of course, it's releasing the deeper causes. Sometimes there are deeper causes around our emotional eating and craving, but of course there's also that external support and viewpoint, which can be so effective because someone else will always see things that you don't see, and also holding that beautiful safe place to work on this. Where if we're tapping by ourselves, I used to find I'd tap for a little while until it felt better, and then that was that. And of course, it's not really, it's making you feel a little bit better in that moment, but not really solving the deeper cause. So building your personal fortress. So it's that tapping in the moment, which we did. So in the midst of a craving or emotional eating, I always recommend to my clients that you just stop for a moment and check in. It can be so, our subconscious just wants, kind of like a Band-Aid. Exactly, Suzanne, that's exactly what it's like. The subconscious just wants us to feel better. And it's, often we set up this habit, okay, I feel bad, go straight to the comfort food. So it's always good just to check in, see, okay, how am I feeling? What am I feeling? And in that moment of pause, it is a beautiful analogy, building your personal fortress, isn't it? In that moment of pause, we can sort of recognize what's going on, and okay, perhaps we can do some tapping there. Absolutely beautiful change to alter those patterns. It's about, as I said, recognizing our triggers and patterns. So just building that lovely awareness. Just be aware without things being so automatic. Okay, it's always this time of day perhaps, or it's when I've had a bad day at work, or this has happened, or might be procrastination as well. Just being aware and alert, but also with that lovely self-compassion. And really, I talk about a sense of lightness, gentle curiosity perhaps. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So it's not about beating yourself up, it's about recognizing those triggers and patterns, so then you can do something about them with your tapping. It's releasing the deeper cause as well, and this is where sometimes working with a practitioner can be so helpful. So sometimes there are things that are a little bit deeper that are connected to our emotional eating and our food cravings, and tapping can be absolutely perfect for releasing these. And it's almost like our subconscious recognizes, okay, this is a safe place. We can get this particular thing healed and solve those deeper emotional causes. And as I say, that external support and viewpoint is just so important. And for some people, they'll be absolutely fine to sort of take this and run. But for many, just even having a session with a practitioner can guide you in the right direction and support you through the process and make it just so more effective. So in a few months, you can be like those people in the studies that say, yeah, that's right, I did have a problem with chocolate. Or one of those people, I used to always think, people would, perhaps you'd be in a situation where they'd be handing around the chocolates and you think, I just want all of the chocolates. And I couldn't imagine what it would be like to just take one piece of chocolate and be happy with that. And it's so wonderful to be able to do that after so long not being able to do that. So this is a beautiful question. What do you need to strengthen? Is it that tapping in the moment and utilising that more? Is it building that awareness around your triggers and your patterns? Is it perhaps releasing the deeper cause or that external support and viewpoint? And so I just mentioned a beautiful one-on-one offer I've got tonight, which is for a 45-minute session, which seems to be about the right time for most people. Just $55 Australian, and to book that in, just email me at claire@clairekerslake.com. And so just invite any questions that you might have around tapping generally or anything that I've covered tonight. Yes, yeah, I loved our session too, Suzanne. Just fantastic. So some of the questions that people ask are around, you know, should I tap with one or both hands? Now, I often tap just with one, and the research is just with one. But if you feel that you want to tap with two, you know, I'm not the sort of person that says, no, you absolutely must do it this way. If you feel like you'd like to tap with two, absolutely go for it. And some people recommend that. The research is around one side. It can be either side. It doesn't have to be one side or the other. So that's one of the questions that I get. Now, just check the chat to see if there's any other questions that have come up. One of the questions that sometimes arises is, well, can I just do it to a YouTube channel? And there's lots of tapping videos on YouTube, and they're fantastic and often help to demystify the process. What I'd sort of caution you when you're tapping, if you're tapping at home, just to do, you know, do that jotting down some of the different things around the cravings, and then use those words in your tapping. Another question that I was asked too to cover is, what happens if my cravings reduce but it hasn't completely gone? You know, what's that all about? Does it mean that the tapping doesn't work? And in fact, what that's about, sometimes it might be that you haven't tapped enough, and you just need to, perhaps you weren't rating the craving, or perhaps you stop when it's starting to feel a little bit better, which, as I said, seems to be around the 5 out of 10. You just need to do a little bit more tapping. Another possible reason might be what we call aspects. So you know how I talked about the chocolate, you know, being smooth and creamy, or the Coke, you know, being icy cold and with the bubbles. There might be different aspects around the food that you crave. Might be time of day, is often an important aspect. So you might be tapping perhaps for chocolate at 10 o'clock in the morning, but you really crave it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So you might need to just revisit that craving and that chocolate at the right time, and see how you go there. Sometimes it can be related to a memory. For instance, you know, I often tell this story. I learned to count with Smarties, which are chocolate, of course. And that, you know, it's memories like that where we've got this special memory tied to that food. But sometimes we need to tap on that memory. So that they can all be different aspects of our craving, why we just need to do a little bit of tapping around that. Beautiful. Just checking if there's no more questions. Doesn't seem to be any more questions in the chat. So I'll just put that offer up again. So beautiful introductory offer and webinar offer, 45-minute session for $55 Australian. And just email me, claire@clairekerslake.com. And yeah, I'd love to work with you. But if not, good luck with your tapping, and feel free to email if you've got any questions around the tapping. I'm just so passionate about tapping, particularly as it relates to emotional eating and cravings. It's just, as I said earlier, it's really like the magic wand I always wish I had, and just so thrilled to be able to offer it to clients. So that's it from me today. We've sped through, I must be talking really quickly, we've sped through our slides, and hope that you've enjoyed the webinar. Thank you for coming along, and good luck with your tapping, and I'm so glad that you found it really valuable, and I look forward to touching base soon. So don't hesitate to email me with questions, or to book in a session. Yeah, I'd love to work with you. Okay. Now just find my controls here, and we'll stop that recording. Bye for now. Yeah, let's have a look.